Greetings. Thank you each for your presence. I'm joined by the fantastic, world-renowned Mr. Astrotheology Santos Bonacci today to talk about Pisces. Yes, this is the 12th and conclusive part of our Astrology of the Zodiac series. Thank you so much for joining me, Santos.
Yeah, brother, just looking for something. Thank you. I'm back.
You never left. We're all present here, and it's very exciting that we're talking about that kind of paradoxal mutable water sign, the 12th sign of Pisces today.
Yep. It's my moon sign, so I understand it quite well, and I'm pretty keen to talk a little bit about it and see what I can share.
Brilliant. I've got Jupiter and Mars in Pisces. And my mum's a Pisces sun and Mercury, so I'm familiar a bit with it. Also, I've got the old Neptune conjunct my Capricorn sun, so it's all just a mystery to me. But this is a mystery story. The Pisces element is a bit like where we can find captivation. We can find that we are actually within something, and yet we're outside of something too. It's a paradox. It's two fish. It's this and that. And it creates a change through the churning of the mystical waters that we experience through this kind of Neptunian, Jupiterian land of the ether. How do you like to feel into this kind of quality, Santos?
Yeah, look, it's a fascinating sign. It's about 12 and completion. And so those people seem to have some kind of a connection with their old soul self. And so it seems that they've completed their 12 labors somehow, but yeah, I think it's carries a lot of karma with it as well. It's heavy laden with karma sort of meanings, and yeah, it shows through in their emotional nature. They're very emotional, very sensitive. They seem to be telepathic and psychic as well. So they've got a lot of gifts, Pisceans. There's a lot of occultists that are into that are Pisceans, like I think Edgar Casey, Manly P. Hall. A lot of interesting people go deep into theology. So they've got their, they're awakened somehow.
Would you suggest that with regards to this quality of the 12th sign, it can be a bit like a grand accumulation of lifetimes? So it's a bit like if Scorpio is like the bogged down water that sometimes flushes through, and then Pisces is like everything that ever has been and everything that ever will be, but can it be fathomed at this moment? It's like, what can you gather and collect? What can you bring forth? It's like that twilight zone where you're just before something new and yet you're just after something old. But yet if you can bring something through of both of those, then you're just going to be there, bold, a story ever told. It's kind of this poetic, whimsical kind of thing, but you can kind of get lost in it very easily. It's like, I've just got a fog, but it's clear for all to see. How do you think and perceive of this stuff, Santos?
Yeah, there's a bit of vagueness about them, but there's also sometimes they get very, very certain. The one fish is doubting, the other fish has got a lot of faith. So you see them really motivating other people, finishing up and tidying. They're good finishers. They tidy up things really well and make sure that everything's in order, that the cardinal signs started and left unfinished. I find I've had, my first wife was Piscean. She was very orderly, very organized. And yeah, one of my other partners, which was of duration of about a year or two as well. I've had two partners in my life of Pisces that I related to through my moon, and they were both very, very organized. Paid attention to detail, I found. I don't know whether it was just their astrology, but I attribute that to Pisces. I find that that's their their qualities as well. You know,
So
being
it's like
immutable.
chaos and order. So the omnipresence, they just know where those keys are down the back of the sofa. They just know certain things because they feel it. Very perceptive.
Spot on, brother. Yeah. Opposite Virgo, which is very analytical. They're not so like that, but their forte is belief and faith, whereas Virgo is skeptical and doubting. Pisces are compassionate, whereas Virgos are critical. Pisces are mystics. Virgos are into science. Well, that would be, you know, physics and material science, obviously, because mysticism is spiritual science. I mean, the Pisces are all about the one. Virgo is all about the many. Pisces is about the whole. Virgo is about the parts. Pisces undifferentiated. Virgo differentiated. Pisces togetherness. Virgo separateness. Pisces merging. Virgo dividing. So both mutables have their opposite functions, and that's the interesting thing about good old little Pisces there. Having a moon in Pisces teaches you how I react. So when you get a reaction from me, it'll either be one or the other of my split emotional nature, because it is split, and the moon is how one reacts. And so I find that I've always had healthy doubt and healthy belief, and I flip-flop from the one to the other. So yeah, flip-flopping is very, very consistent with Pisces nature. They don't seem to what's the word when you accept a responsibility and stick with it? They're flaky. What's the opposite of flaky?
Non-committal.
Yes, that's the word I was looking for. They tend to not commit, you know. Let me think about it. Tentatively, we'll book it for Friday. And then they change their mind anyway, because of their emotional nature. They let their emotions dominate.
It's very funny because they're quite devotional, but if there's an opportunity, which there is obviously an opportunity to slip free of the net, then you will, and you can, and you shall.
True. Yeah, they're very slippery, wishy-washy at worst. And you know, that visionary stuff of theirs as well can sometimes be when it's negative, can be very foggy-minded and delusional and stressed out. They do carry a lot of stress. I find that they have a lot of fears as well. They live under a lot of fear somehow, Pisceans. Lots of stress.
It takes a tremendous command to be able to wield that energy, because it's the storytelling energy. So it's either going to be sending you doolally into some kind of ferocious story if you tell that, but if you have the grasp on your own matter, if you have a grasp on your own material, if you have a grasp on something, a container or a frame for this gift, then you become the mage, the magi, who is able to really tell a tale, who's really able to tell one's own story, who's able to really sew their own shadow back on, which takes mastery. It's like bringing it all together. We recognize that it can be our own downfall if we get too, you know, swept away in one's own mysticism. I would imagine it's good. I'm talking to like someone who's got Capricorn sun, so obviously I'm brought right that down to earth. But this is a necessity, and a component is all of the zodiac is all inclusive. So thank goodness for the other signs. But this is like a portal which allows us to channel everything through. Like if you think about the time of the day, it's the 4 a.m., all the birds which are the bards, they're telling the story. And so the REM sleeps going banana inside of our brain. The dimethyltryptamine, the spirit molecule, the Christos, the Christ is being pumped all around us. And that's what's allowing us to feel this connection. our connection to the ethers, our connection to like the brain cloud, to the storm of it all, is that moment there. I suppose that's my antithesis of like the Pisces energy, but that's just their day-to-day life. That's just our experience. We've all got Pisces. We all have a 12th house.
Yes, yes, good point. So everyone has that that ability to a certain extent, but Pisceans are masters of that. So
when we talk about again like these two fish, like, and they're like where they're separated at birth. Sometimes you hear the story of the Romulus and the Remus, or like the twins in general, or the two lovers, the twin flames. But these two, they've got an unbelievable cord or connection, like in the actual sky, in the way that this is like these two stars of Pisces are represented. And so there's a beauty in finding each other, but then whenever you do find each other, it's the beauty in being able to let go once more, which is so profoundly heart-wrenching, which conjures so much love once more for the self as well as the other. It's kind of heart-wrenchingly beautiful, right?
it is, yeah, for sure. When they balance their two fish out, they're quite interesting people to have around. Good friends. Yeah, I think loyalty is one of their virtues as well. So, and it rules the feet, of course, must be remembered. They're very much about the feet. They often get cold feet, itchy feet. Usually they're pretty good dancers, sportsmen as well, sports people, runners especially. They're always using their feet to bring about the good news that they like to share. So they're fishers of men. That's what Pisces is. When Jesus is called fisher of man, it's dealing basically with Pisces, right?
Oh yeah. So what they'll do is they'll surrender their own self to awaken another. They'll bare their soul, and so in doing this, what they do is they're like, I'm going to put myself out all day long just to awaken these guys who are lollygagging on the fact that they can love themselves and each other a little bit more. This is the kind of experience that a Pisces would do. Their show, their compassion and their outpouring love for others to be a leading example of what love or Christ does, right?
Yeah, exactly. So bringing people together in the fold is what they do. A fisher of men, not a fish. So
that's what a fisher of men is, isn't it? So to catch them into the wave, to catch them into the collective consciousness.
Yes.
What's the story of the fisher of men?
Well, that was Jesus, right? So he was bringing his 12 apostles together. Of course, he's going to be called the fisher of men. And the first two apostles that he finds is Andrew and Cephas. Well, Andromeda and Cephas are two deacons of Pisces, together with the fish band. So Andromeda, Andrew, Cephas, Peter. Cephas is the constellation that stands with his right foot on the north on Polaris, and he's the most northern constellation, together with Draco and all of these circumpolar constellations. But Cephas, Peter, Jupiter, Zeus. See, when Peter came up, he said, "My name is Peter, and this is my brother Andrew." And Jesus said, "I will call you Cephas, the rock." Well, Cephas, with his foot standing on Polaris, that's the rock. And as the firmament turns around Polaris day in, day out, Cephas is always there with his foot there, firmly fixed. So it's like a rock. And you see, and then he went in to see I think Peter's wife, who was death-bound and sick. Well, that's Cassiopeia. That's in Aries next door. So the whole story is on the ecliptic. All the stories come from there. They're all drawn from the ecliptic. And so
kiss the feet, don't they, as well, in many cultures, because of the amount of fortune that's carried in the soul, very Jupiterian.
Well, that's where the soul is projected from, the feet and the hands. So you have the sole of your foot and the palm of your hand. Well, palm, if you remove the P, you get alm, alms, religious alms. Well, in Spanish, alma is a soul. So you've got soul projecting from your palms, alma, and you've got souls in your feet. And that's why when they do...
that's like sun, isn't it? So soul is the sun. We've got the sun in our feet.
That's why you always put your palms up to the lamp, the Lamb of God, the sun. Palm is an anagram for lamp. And there's two portals. In males, the sun's magnetic currents are drawn in through the right hand and then return to the sun through the left. So when you're doing this, like Akhenaten taught us, and you're solar gazing, you're actually creating a loop and charging your body, and that current is now turning your chakras, every one of them. So that's why it's so important to have your palms, alma, facing the sun.
That's amazing, isn't it? Like my favorite thing about astrology is how much it comes back to this being the language for our starship, like the body being our starship or our greatest vessel, like our spirit vehicle. It's really like the handbook to the Merkaba, if you will, which I think is just brilliant, because it's our connection that we're married into as a spirit. We're married into this body, and we want to know how to use it and to relate to it. And this language opens us up to that.
Yep, it does. Pisces is the last sign of the wave. And so it stitches up. The two fish are like a stitching. And at the end of Pisces, March 20th, there is the equinox. So those fish are depicting the two halves of the wave, the summer half and the winter half, coming together. Well, the same thing happened at the other equinox, where Libra begins, the seventh sign. Libra is judging the equinox, right? Oh, the sun had a good year during the summer. Now it's Saturn's turn to control the winter and balancing the two major seasons. So Libra kicks it off, this duality, this other half, and Pisces, the two fish, stitch it up. And that's why the symbol for Pisces is two halves of a circle and a line through the middle. It's the torus field, or the hyperbola, intersected by the plane of inertia. It's just a very, very simple toroidal field symbol.
So yeah, so that this is the Pisces symbol, isn't it?
Yes.
So it's like the two fish are actually representing the two sides of the toroid, or what is actually an atom. So this is the beauty of it, is that actually it's this interconnected singularity that we get from the doubt and the faith. If we can bring it to the center of that space, then we are this individual spark, or the bolt of current in the middle.
Yeah, that's more like it.
So that's like, also we see this logo, they utilize it in car designs, like and many different logos steal off the Pisces, because it's actually very much representative of this toroid field.
Yeah, well, there I've put in the hyperbola, the hourglass in the middle, and then you can see the two toroidal fields, and then the plane of inertia is that thing there, which is where counterspace is, right there in the middle. And so Pisces in the center of that is just a cross section of the Taurus field, as are all the other symbols of astrology. Taurus, Aries, they all come from the Taurus field. Gemini, these are the two twins, Gemini, the two pillars. So it's Boaz and Jachin. So you'll have up to two pillars of Gemini going straight down there, you see. And then Cancer, 69, 6 and a 9 coming together. And they all are cross sections of this, as are the numbers and the letters of all alphabets.
That central space that could be described as like Christ was surrounded by thieves, because that's actually the field out there that we gain our awareness from, as a reflection of our internal singularity point. And so if we're to blame or put all the importance on that, then we'd be overlooking the point, the individual spark, which is actually in this training ground, in this field of awareness projected on out there. And so this is when, like, we see the two pillars. It's like there could be the cerebellum and the seraphim. It's everything that we are learning ourselves through and marinating into the singularity, which is a bit like when you're born through the birth canal, which is what Pisces truly is. Just like those twilight hours, it's the darkest just before the dawn, because everything's fully aware at that point. But as soon as it is dawn, as soon as it's Aries time, it's just old me going for breakfast, going to do press-ups, going for a shower, brushing my teeth. It's all of these different things. It's not like, wow, look at this whole grandiose experience, which I am also.
Yep, good, exactly. So it's kind of a humbling sign, isn't it? It's teaches one to lose the ego. It's all about losing the ego, serving others. Service is very strong there, also in Virgo. That's why Jesus serves the crowds with fish and bread, both emblematic of Pisces and Virgo respectively. The Virgin is there to serve, and the fish are a service sign as well, especially dealing with losing one's ego and emptying themselves of that, controlling device and being more universal. Pisceans are very good at being universal and working in the community. The only problem is flakiness and not committing. But they're great for keeping things in order, tidying up, and bringing a sense of oneness.
I've been really big working with this the past couple of weeks, because it came up even in some birth chart readings with clients who was holding the sun in Virgo, and that's Mary Magdalene. The sun would have it off with Mary in the day, but then go home to Eve at night in the evening. He wouldn't spend the evening out. He wouldn't get caught out. He'd spend it with Eve because he knows what's best for him, does the sun. It's good to rest. Can't talk all the time. You've got to punctuate it with spaces. And you also have to give Eve space in the day. Thank goodness, she would say, I bet, no doubt. So this is what I've been working with. But if we're dealing with the opposite sign of Pisces, which is opposite from Mary Magdalene's sign, obviously this is like the sun's coming back to the day at that point. It's not going to be long, before the sun's with Mary once more. So it's a happy time for the sun to be coming back at Pisces time because of the potential that can be done throughout the day that's going to be brought forth. But with this, also with Aries, it's this more individual. Eve kind of loves it. I mean, Libra loves the fact that it's left to its own devices to pontificate and ruminate and to think about the other. But the fact that the sun does what it wants and does itself, keeps itself to itself in the daytime is quite admittable, quite specifically beneficial as well. This is the beautiful language of astrology, isn't it?
Yes. Yep.
It only gets more and more rich the more that we learn to perceive it. It's just like the wine. As we continue to devote ourselves every day, then our connection to astrology and our connection to ourselves and the way that we embody it is only going to be more profound for each one of us individually, how we choose to express it.
Yeah, for sure. As for being expressive and insightful and deep and penetrating, Pisces don't have any problem with that. The one fish is going deep in the waters and bringing up, deep understandings. So understanding is their great, great strength. But on the negative side, they're not so understood. They get very frustrated with their flip-floppy emotional nature. So they tend to get frustrated that no one understands them. They're all about understanding others. You know, they have this empathy. And
but Michael Jackson and Jung, these were like complex individuals, like, right? Like, and the acquisition of wealth doesn't really mean so much for these people, or any power. It's all about what you maybe can achieve and what you can disrupt. It's almost like an artistic, it can be an artistic observation of life at play in general, because you can see the beauty in like a rainy day that's dawning, or in a beautiful sunny day that's dawning, or something that's coming to the end, like a long night, is and also another perspective which you can perceive, because the time of the day. It's also the winter, isn't it? If depending obviously where you are, but it's in the natural organic zodiac, it's the last months of winter. The seeds that are there at that stage have all of the potency inscribed, ready to germinate, ready to bloom again for the new season.
Sure, exactly. That's a good point, because it's the sign preceding the equinox. So it's the last of the winter, and it's handing over to the power of the sun, where he exalts in Aries. So it's really a launch pad for the sun, and the sun is grateful. In Pisces, there are always the days of Lent, and Christians always eat fish on Friday during Lent. Lent means to lengthen. And in Pisces, it is noticeable how the days are lengthening. You can really feel summer coming on from the moment Pisces kicks in. It doubles the heat, just as Gemini does preceding Cancer. As Bonatti says, the twins double the heat. And so Pisces doubles this energy as well.
But the greatest change happens in the mutable signs.
Exactly. That's what mutable means, to mutate, to change. So Pisces mutates winter into spring. That's the work of Pisces.
And so you could suggest that when we're dealing with a planet, like they've got an inverse and an outburst, just like how we've got an internal and an external. And so that you should say that Jupiter in Sagittarius is the external version of Jupiter, whereas maybe the Pisces is the internal representation of Jupiter.
It is. Mm-hmm.
So it's
100%.
You could say, again, you want to give it another label, it's like the positive and the minus, or the masculine and the feminine, fire and the water. And so when we're dealing with that, it's how we can internalize our own magnetic sphere, isn't it? It's like how you become the great attractor. Pisces is like very powerful at bringing things in towards it. You know, if you stay up that late, then you might be tempted to stay up and watch the sunrise, or you might be tempted to complete something even more when you know that the spring's coming along. You're going to give it your all.
Yeah, for sure. Dreamers and visionaries are what they are. But dreamers is definitely something, you know, they've always got something that they're conjuring up that they've dreamt about, you know. Oh, dream about this, you know, I really would love to see this and that. And that's another thing of their nature. I've got a bit of that. I'm a little bit like that. Very hopeful, you know, always hopeful, hoping.
Do you maybe you use this in everyday life, Santos, in the sense that maybe let's talk about a couple of examples. So, for instance, you might have a gig coming on up, and you might be like, okay, I'm going to attend this gig, but firstly, I'm going to put a bit of nuance on how I think it might go, and that is the daydream capacity. That's like the 12th house capacity. And so we kind of put in our own tone or blend on these certain things, because the more that we give gravitas or weight or magnetism, energy in general to it, is like how we're telling the story.
Yes, spot on.
Like Brahman's cave. And so this Brahman is the deity on the pineal, dreaming on up the whole reality. So this is like our valve of coming into that part of our experience. And so if there's something that we, for instance, if we've got doubt about, so we're like, oh, I don't know if they're going to show up, or I don't know if she's going to like me, or I don't know if I'm going to feel great about this or whatever have you, then we're adding to it. But what we do is we learn to boost ourselves up with reaffirming our confidence with certain things or reassuring ourselves with certain things rather than going too far off adrift into the doubts or even getting too confident about a certain thing. You know, so we've got to kind of bring ourselves back to that middle, back to that sacred center. Otherwise we're going to fall off our horse.
Yeah, good point. Good point. So that one fish can always be monitoring the other fish, you know, and they can see how one takes control during certain moments and parts of the day. And so they can bring it back in. It's good to have a little bit of doubt, you know. If you don't have a little bit of doubt, well, then maybe you will suffer with overconfidence and overreach. So doubting, that little bit of fear, it's always good to keep it in measure and control it, but have it there, you know. So Pisceans are able to do that if they master their emotional flippant nature. If they're able to take control of that, they're able to monitor themselves and correct themselves.
And in the story of the nakshatras that actually falls over Pisces, it's actually that it all starts there because it's a loop, it's a chain, it's a story, it's a tale, time, it's just this circle. And so the craft actually is told that it's began in this spark of the story. It's set into motion in the 12th and in Pisces. And so basically it's this, and like the conception of the day. Those first moments when you dawn, even if it's not at that ridiculous time of the day, if you're someone, I'm not often up at that time of the day. I was a few days ago. I wanted to see Venus being in the morning star, which I have not yet seen because it was cloudy and rainy here. But like the point is that the first moments where we program our day and they're a pattern. They're often something which we're very familiar with, like the way we tell the day. Hopefully it's not a grumble. Hopefully it's something uplifting, something that's going to get us bouncing out of bed, something that's going to give us joy. But obviously sometimes there's hindrances that like we might fall into every day. If you might be a parent, it's not maybe a hindrance, it could be a joy. But if you've got to get up and, you know, you've got to be able to kind of prescribe to the self so that we're able to tell the story. I think this is the greatest thing that astrology lends to, and knowing the potency of how lucid the energy is in those first moments. The Piscean malleability is like a clay that we're the sculptor of. It's very important that we recognize to go into the play rather than the drama, and to go into the empowerment rather than into the victimhood, which is very oceanic.
Yep. Good point, brother. Well, can we finish off with just a point about to the day cycle of Pisces? I just want to finish up with this point because I've got something to attend to. But Pisces is that moment before sunrise. Aries is sunrise. So it's the 2 hours before sunrise. It's the coldest part of the day. And it's that moment of stillness, the most still part of the day, cold and still, 4 to 6, that launches the day. So that's the energy in the daily cycle. We've done the yearly. We know it's the end of winter. But in the daily cycle, it completes the night. So think about that as a Piscean. You know, you're at the end of the night, whereas Virgo opposite is at the end of the day, 4 to 6 at sunset. Pisces is 4 to 6 in AM at sunrise. So that is the condition of Pisces, that darkness coming into the light and illumination, right? So they are the ones that see the sun first, the twilight, and then they go off and they leave the sun. They tag the sun and they say, off you go, serve mankind. So that's where the idea of service comes from. You see, out of the fish comes Venus, out of the seashell, and Venus exalts in Pisces. So it's all about toroidal electromagnetic energy. And Pisces is that sign which is about to emerge into the daylight, but it is part of the darkness, which means it is of the modality of going within. and seeking truths within by losing the ego and being awakened. There's their gift, to be awakened at the end of night.
Oh goodness! It's a bit that you said something amazing, which brought back to the sentence that I was already daydreaming and holding on to. It's profound. It's this loop. We go through the loop every single day, and in that moment when we're still dreaming, we are still the dream. We are the Godhead. We are the sorcerer. We're the source. We're the magi. We're everything we could potentially ever want to be. But then that stillness comes, and in that moment we recognize, yeah, shit. I'm still human. I'm back. It's another day. But if we recognize that we were that God, we still are that I am. We always shall be. And we are also the way. We're the way teller. We're the storyteller. And so we're the way shower of this grand cosmic expedition. This is the 12th sign. We've been through all of them at this point. This is a very powerful playlist we're putting together. If you haven't watched them all from Aries all the way through, which we started a couple of years ago, then check them all out, because this is a very valuable resource. But the more that we come tighter into our own storytelling through our knowledge of the Zodiac, the greater our lives will be, the greater clearance that we get when we recognize that being human is a gift. And we are that gift. The stillness in those moments that we can gather from all the hysteria, all the nebula, all the craziness, well, that is our presence. And so thank you so much for showing up and for finishing and for being consistent and persistent throughout this series with us, Santos. It's been really great to be able to make this contribution for the people and for ourselves. I've really enjoyed it.
Thanks, brother. It's been great working with you, always is. And I look forward to Tulum on the 26th, where we'll both be speaking at the presentation that you're hosting, eh?
Yes, Astro Tulum. Anybody interested can get your tickets below. It's not too late. We still have some spaces available. Love to connect together with you in tribe. It's going to be great to meet you again, Santos, and to hang out and to listen to your presentation. What are you going to be talking about?
Geocentrism and how astrology proves it.
Fantastic. We're getting centered. We're coming into ourselves, and I'm very excited to connect with you there, Santos, and everybody else. As I say, the tickets are available in the link in the description. If you're watching this on Mr. Astrotheology YouTube, check out the playlist on my YouTube, Unifying Perspectives, for all of my videos with Santos, all 12 of them, and a few others as well. They are also on this channel. What a fantastic collection of information that you've produced over the years, Santos. I'm really grateful for these collaborations. Thank you, everybody, for watching and for sharing. Thank you for being who you are. You are a vital facet. Each one of us is so valuable. I'm grateful for you. Thank you, Santos.
Thanks, brother.